Devil May Cry.
We good?
Can you hear us?
Can y'all hear us? I'm gonna start talking like halfway through. We should all we should all laugh, like pretending we're having a really funny conversation before this started.
That's a great joke.
Right? Oh man.
We are laughing.
We're laughing so earnestly. Welcome back to the 20th anniversary charity marathon supporting the Homeless Worldwide charity. Remember everyone, there's the PayPal link in the About Me section. Hello, I'm Runeby. I have my friend Millz here, and we are interviewing Casey Edwards. I feel like I don't need introductions for Casey, but for anyone that's unaware, he wrote the songs Devil Trigger for Devil May Cry 5. He wrote Bury the Light, wrote The Duel, plenty of stuff he's done for Devil May Cry 5. So welcome. Thanks for being here, Casey.
Yeah, this is gonna be really fun. I
Yeah.
would do anything to help support charity and Devil May Cry fans at the same time. Why not?
Yeah, you've been so supportive. Like especially since Devil May Cry 5 Special Edition came out, you've been so supportive of the community, like always stopping by streams and just interacting with community members on Twitter. Like that doesn't I feel like that doesn't happen too often. So like for
It
speaking
took me
as a
whole
fan,
year to chill out because the first was like I wrote the song in Devil Trigger in 2017, and
Yeah.
then that was in February. We had to fast forward like a year and a half to the next summer when you guys got the announcement at E3, and I was nerve wracked because they told me just a couple months prior that they were going to use that song as the world premiere song in the trailer. And I was like, I still have like another year to worry about people having to listen to my music and judge it. But then that got cut pretty fast. And then,
Whole year.
then I got to, we got to sit on that. It was a really good reaction, and I was really happy about that. But it still took me, I think, until the special edition to kind of relax and chill and enjoy the DMC community. And it was really fun jumping into streams. Like I jumped into yours and C4 and Tiff and everybody else who's been playing the game. And it's been really fun seeing everybody's reaction to the game at whole, not just my music, but yeah.
Yeah, definitely. No, but I mean, like I was saying, like as a fan, it means so much to have somebody that you appreciate doing the work. Because, like, I mean, okay, no surprise, Virgil's my favorite character. So when you,
Shock.
the writer, I know, when the writer of his theme showed up in my chat, I'm just like, this is amazing. This doesn't happen too often. So it actually felt great. So it's so nice to have you in the community. You're not just like somebody that like we view as just somebody that works on Don't Make Cry. Like you are in the community. We all love you, and I know I'm speaking for everyone when I'm saying that.
Yeah, right. Everybody loves me, including those Instagram DMs that I get that are definitely not me.
Those are bots. Don't worry.
No, but the feeling goes both ways. Like whenever, for instance, not to go back maybe to this moment particularly, but you started like tearing up during your first playthrough of the official hearing back Bury the Light in the game. Those are special moments. I know it's not just me; it's the penultimate like edition of everything that everybody did at Capcom, and including the song. But it's just nice to see those sort of reactions to things that we have worked on, and then the fans get to enjoy. So I get return on the investment as well.
Well, I'm so happy to hear that. I really hope you come back for Devil May Cry because your music has given everyone, I feel, there's just so much energy to DMC5 because of your music. So I really hope we can get you back into a future game. Just get that energy back. So Capcom, if you're listening.
Yeah,
Definitely.
well, I have
Hint,
said in the
hint.
past before, I do appreciate the fact that they reach out to new artists so often. I think that's kind of the reason why I got to even work on it. And there may be somebody out there just chilling in their bedroom, like me, who had basically no solo game credits at the time, who's going to write an even better song. So you just never know.
I think another good thing is that they use like Capcom uses so many different artists for their games, especially so Devil May Cry 5, for example. There's so many artists making different songs. So there's just like a big general vibe to the soundtrack. So but you're right, yeah, like you can get returning people, you get new people, as long as, there's that special Devil May Cry 5 energy.
For sure.
That's what we need. But I guess we can open up if anybody in the chat has specific questions for Casey. But if not,
Yeah.
I just want to. Or Mills, do you have something?
No, I was gonna let you do your questions first because my questions are a bunch of nerdy music questions. Like, so I was
Good,
gonna leave
because
those.
this leads me to a good point. I've done a couple of DMC interviews before. I've done like a 3-hour stream on my own YouTube channel where we answered. I did an interview with Victor. I did an interview with Ali. And then following that, we did a lyric breakdown and a music production breakdown of just Bury the Light. So if you guys want to like dive into that, you can see all that nerdiness. I have done like an hour plus interview with Alex Mukala where we answered a bunch of questions. So if you're still thirsty for more of whatever I have to ramble about, there's plenty of that out there. So hopefully we can get some like Millz is talking about, some nerdy questions to mix it up a little bit.
I think I'll need to go back and watch that too, like study it just with like a magnifying glass and just be like, oh, how did he do that? Okay.
For
I don't know.
But
for anybody who wants to see those interviews, Casey, are those on your YouTube or?
Yeah, the big like 3 hour deep dive into like lyrics, production, and the interviews is on my YouTube channel. I believe it's just youtube.com/Casey Edwards. Nothing fancy. And then the other interview I did is on Alex Mukala's YouTube. I'm sure if you typed in like Bury the Light reaction video on YouTube, his is like the first one.
Okay, so they're
He's
there.
got an interview.
And I just tucked away.
Yeah, tucked away somewhere.
Hidden
do you want
like
to
a
just
file.
there's like people are asking some questions, be in the chat if you want to. Do you think we should just ask questions when they get popped up, or do you want to save them for later? How do you want to?
We can answer. You can ask a question, like answer one, and then just go from there.
Yeah.
But
question is
let's
from
see.
Mobazal. I'm probably not saying that right. I apologize. About the song.
Shooty's in chat. I feel like I have to say hi. We've never officially spoken to each other, but I have to say, when I was writing Devil Trigger, the first thing I did, because they didn't really give me too much information about the game. Like, for instance, I had no idea Nero got his Devil Trigger at the end of the game. Spoiler alert, by the way. Sorry.
Oh no.
If they had told me that, I never would have written the song that I wrote. But aside from that, my only objective at the time was to like sort of reach into the past a little bit. So that whole opening part where Cliff is singing, the only male vocals in that song, were just like me harkening back to being like my 14-year-old dumb self and just loving that sort of rock music. And I had to like bring a bit of that past into the future. So I feel like we have to give him a shout out while he's in chat.
And also maybe please work together, because that would be awesome. Sorry, who said that? I didn't hear that.
I agree. I agree with whoever said that. That was weird.
Who said that? That was strange.
I don't know.
Sorry, go on. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna ask, like, so when you got approached to work on Devil May Cry music, is there like a movie or something specific that you felt that you had to watch, or an album you had to listen to get you into the mood, or did you just like play the games?
I'm guessing this is probably specifically most about the first phone call about the Devil Trigger period.
Sure, yeah, whatever started it.
For that, I honestly tried not to listen to too much past music, just because I didn't want to get colored too much. I was trying to basically live off of what I remembered only, which was that sort of stuff like I was just talking about, like the angsty male vocals and rock guitars, and I was listening to like some like heavier EDM stuff, like Prodigy and stuff like that.
Nice.
I really wanted to bring something a little bit heavier and a bit more modern. Plus, they gave me their demo track, which they had started, which is sort of like, hey, this is what we're writing for Nero, but don't make it like this. So I took like 2% inspiration from that, because they started that track for a reason. There was a tempo and there was sort of a key that had been established, and I just kind of ran with it. Yeah, not particularly anything movie wise or music wise. It's just, when I get started on any project, the first thing I do is I just try to completely envelop myself in that world, because I need to be completely and wholly inspired. So that way, if I'm out eating dinner, all I'm thinking about is Devil May Cry. If I'm playing a video game that's not Devil May Cry, I'm still thinking about Devil May Cry. Because at the end of the day, the fans get it, and Capcom has to get it, and everybody has to like it. That's all I think about, is how to not fuck it up.
Yeah, you've mentioned how you have that anxiety where it's like, even if a song is 99% finished, it's just like you have another 12 hours minimum just to finish it or whatever.
Yeah.
Never over.
It's just, I guess this whole music thing is just all engrossing. Even if it's just a personal release, I'll sit on it. As you guys know, I released Vacant Surrender like almost a year ago now, and I feel so ashamed that I haven't released anything since, but I have a lot of stuff on the back burner I'm trying to get through. It's just, I have to meet my own standards, and Capcom or any video game gives me a deadline that I have to meet. Like, for instance, I told you I almost deleted your favorite verse in Bury the Light.
You did.
I wrote like 5 choruses for that song, and I ended up having to go back to the first one because I ran out of time.
Do you want to
So,
admit which verse you almost got rid of to the chat?
no, it's fine.
Okay, they don't have to know as long as it's in the song.
Yeah.
See,
Um,
that sort of factored into a question that I had, Casey, where it was like what was the process when Capcom asked you to make a song? You said they gave you like a reference for Devil Trigger, but they said don't make it sound like this.
It was an in-house reference rather than
Right.
like an external list of references, and it was more of like, we don't know what to do, don't do this kind of vibe that they were giving me. So I didn't.
And that
That's
was the same
basically
for
the
like
easy way to answer it.
it was the same for like songs like The Jewel or Silver Bullet. Silver Bullet, it was like the same process. They would give you something sort of as a reference, or would they just was there any point where they just said like you have creative freedom, like for the special edition, for example? It's like,
For the Duel and Silver Bullet, they had some loose references that they sent, like one track each, and one of them was kind of already like a mix-up of Devil Trigger being involved with something else, which is how Silver Bullet even came to be.
Yeah.
I don't know why they. It's like Devil Trigger is such a weird song. Like I feel like it kind of sits on some weird outlier of genres. I would never write that song if it weren't for Devil May Cry. That's a weird song to me, but it works in the world somehow.
yeah,
Silver
no,
Bullet, kind
it's
of the same
magic.
deal. It's like a 90s dance track in Devil May Cry, but it's just tongue in cheek enough to work, I guess.
It works
Um,
perfect. Like as soon as the song kicks in during the boss fight, you're just like, "Holy shit, what is happening?" Like
I
you don't
feel
expect it. That's why it's so amazing.
Well, they prepped it pretty well with a solo violin piece that was so
Yeah,
beautiful. I believe John Graham wrote that. And then you get just the biggest FU bomb, and it drops
yeah.
right into that like opening a Silver Bullet. So ridiculous.
I think
Um,
I
but it
think that
makes
was
that kind of stuff so much fun to do, I guess, when you get the. I didn't know, by the way, he dropped that F bomb. I knew that how the song was being implemented was sort of like the last track of the battle, but I didn't know we were getting solo violin and then this giant juxtaposition so fast and so hard. Like it just hits you. As soon as you snap into your Devil Trigger mode, he's like, fuck you.
Yeah.
You know? I'm just like, what?
It really does come out of nowhere, and that's totally the vibe of Devil May Cry. It's just ridiculousness that works somehow.
there's
Yeah.
not a
It was
single
perfect.
fan. There's not like a single fan who didn't pop off when that happened. That was
Yeah,
like the single coolest thing that had ever happened ever. Like and that song for me is like that. I think that was my favorite song. I think um Bury the Light has overtaken it at this point, but at the time before special edition, like Silver Bullet was just like, and that boss fight was just too good, homie. And that song is like a big part of it. Like it was ridiculously good. I wish we could play that song throughout the whole game because it was that good.
Well, I'm glad people like Silver Bullet. I was more worried about that track than I was Devil Trigger because at that point, nobody had even heard Devil Trigger yet, and Capcom was doubling down on the success rate of people liking that song. So imagine had they hated it en masse, and then we have a remix of it at the very end for the final boss. Like that would not have been awesome. So
What
they were really doubling down on that bet, and I guess
what
it paid off. So
what was the feedback process that would they come back to you and say, "Oh, this is nice, but this needs to change," or maybe this part doesn't work the way we want it to in terms of the song structure or whatever? Or did that not happen? Was there no
there
like
was
did they
some
come?
very little stuff. I got more of that with Bury the Light, but it's always small notes. They never like straight up said, "Don't do that." Like that's terrible. I was
Right?
doing that to myself enough anyways.
Yeah.
But no, it would be like, "Can we try this or can we try that?" And I would say yes or no, and I'd give them a reason why. Um, yeah, it was actually pretty chill. They were really, really chill to work with. They were like, especially with Bury the Light, they were letting me kind of try whatever. I remember I texted my agent before I even tried this, but I was like, should I put a guitar solo on Bury the Light? It feels a bit self-serving. And he was like, I would do it.
no
So,
hesitation.
yeah, so you have him to thank for that. I didn't even ask Capcom. I just thought it was going to be like, there's no way. Why would I put a guitar solo in a song these days? But it worked, I guess.
So when
I
you're
bet you.
writing like any of the main songs, was it pretty much like the same thing from conception to release, or did you like tweak a lot of it, or did you already like pretty much pre-plan what the song was going to sound like?
Devil Trigger had very little pre-planning. Bury the Light had a ton.
Okay.
Uh, when I got the call for Devil Trigger, I was still kind of shell shocked, and I felt like I had a lot to prove. Just not to like DMC fans only, but just professionally. Period. I
Mhm.
couldn't put out a bunch of shite. So
Good
I
choice.
really remember just like throwing a bunch of stuff into my sessions, and I was just constantly trying to like find the sound. It's kind of how I came up with one of my favorite sections, which is like the big guitar part that's just like da 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 da. You know, it's very simple,
Hmm.
but that's one of my favorite parts of that song. I feel like it kind of hits that Prodigy heavy rock EDM vibe
Yeah,
pretty well.
when you said Prodigy, I thought of that part actually.
Yeah, to me, like one of the two of the references that I was focusing on at the time was like Zed, which is very poppy EDM, and the other one was Rammstein, because I was thinking about
Damn.
somewhere in the middle of those two very opposite artists, this song might live. And I feel like Prodigy is somewhere in the middle of there as well. And I was getting a lot of inspiration from that kind of stuff. But not much pre-planning was involved. It was a lot of just trial and error. And thankfully, me and Allie, the singer on Devil Trigger, were married. So I could bother her a whole lot and be like, I can't sing, but I have melodies and lyrics. Please come try this out for me. And she would come in a lot and try things. And I'd be like, oh, no, that's awful. I'm sorry. Please stop. And I would try to fix it, and she'd come back in, or she would offer up her own suggestions and make it better. So for Bury the Light, however, I wrote like almost the whole thing on piano first, melodies, guitar parts, and everything. And I just wanted to make sure it had like this big epic flow that reached, you know, the climax at the end, how it did. So yeah, very different approaches.
Okay.
There's
Fox, go ahead.
yeah, I was going to say the Fox Kid question too.
I know that
Yeah,
was a
go
good
ahead.
question.
Yeah.
Okay, Foxcade asks if you knew more about what the story dialogue was going to be, do you think songs would be much different?
For Devil Trigger, yeah, it wouldn't have existed. I never would have said. First of all, what a weird lyric! Bang, 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 pull my devil trigger. I don't understand how that came out of my brain, but it did. Um, but had I
Okay.
known like, yeah, had I known like the storyline climax would have been that, I would have been like, well, I can't spoil it. I have to like beat around the bush a little bit. But they didn't tell me, so yeah, that song never would have happened, or at least that hook would have never happened. It would have been something completely different. For Bury the Light, I think knowing how like the story already kind of transgresses or whatever in the storyline, we already knew all that. We were just getting Virgil as a playable character, so I knew that I could dive a lot into lore in his lyrics, which you didn't really get with Narrow and Devil Trigger. It was more of like a vibe rather than
Mm.
like a lore dump, which I feel like Bury the Light kind of is in a way.
It
So yeah,
encompasses a lot, yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I would say this. Yeah, if had I known more beforehand, Devil Trigger would be different, and had I didn't know more, Bury the Light would be very different. So yeah,
Well, maybe it worked out because I feel like Devil Trigger and Very Light are just perfect as they are. So maybe it worked out in the
yeah.
end. So they told you like nothing about the story. Like, did they give you like any little hints?
For Devil Trigger, no. It was like we have Narrow. I was like, oh yeah, I know about Narrow. Devil May Cry 4, I can do that. You know, they gave me a couple of
Okay.
adjectives, yeah, and that was about it. And then fast forward a few months, and they asked me to do the duel in Silver Bullet, and that's when I found out that Narrow was going to be in a boss fight. But that's still all I really knew.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I
Just really
probably could
no
have asked
reason.
for more information, but I didn't. I was kind of tunnel visioned on the music at that time. Um, yeah, I don't know, maybe a bad decision on my part, but this is
No,
how it
it
played
worked
out.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like curious how much information Capcom drops on musicians because like they obviously they probably don't want to spoil anything, but they want like a general idea. But I
Mhm.
guess they gave you enough information. You gave them exactly what they wanted. It just worked out.
Yeah, I would say even under NDA, sometimes they're careful. Any game creator, they're careful about how much
Right.
information they give out, how early they give it out, because either one, it might change, or two, they just the least amount of possible avenues for things to leak, the better.
Yeah, that's true.
Either accidentally or on purpose. Like obviously, I would never do it on purpose, but if like God forbid an email or Discord or something was hacked or something like that.
We've seen a lot of information being uh leaked, like through like voice actors. Not naming any names, but
I think
people
I've
know
seen
who
that
I'm
video.
talking about. Yeah. So maybe they were wary of something like that.
That's so
Um,
funny.
um, is there something that made you decide to do the funky dance and rock fusion? Was it impulse? Is it just something like maybe you've always wanted to do?
Just the world of Devil May Cry
Okay.
inspiring the sound. I mean, that's really all I can put it as. Um, I just tried not to veer too far away from what had been established, but also offer something a little different.
When you were developing the song, for example, Devil Trigger, obviously it was intended as a battle track for Nero, as well as sort of the main theme. Did you have a look at the gameplay and stuff like maybe of the previous game that had Nero in it, and saw maybe the tempo that his gameplay was set, and maybe use that as an inspiration for the BPM, or was it just something that happened regardless, like that kind of fast sort of house paced BPM? Was there any like did you use any previous gameplay as a reference, or was that something that
They
just
did
sort of
they did send some early gameplay footage over, and it was essentially like the first like urban setting that you get, where it's like that sort of like kind of circle-ish area, and then you fight. I can't even remember. I think it's the first time you also hear "Bury the Light." I
Yep.
think it's the first time you get a game track in game for any character.
Yep. Yep.
I can't remember the name of the stage. I think it's like mission 2,
Mission 2, yeah, yeah.
maybe.
It's in the
Yeah.
city with the lights. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I had that stage set up, and they had a little bit of gameplay. They were showing me how it was working with the demo track, which sort of already had the music engine in mind, which they had already built all that up, which was kind of familiar to me already from working on Killer Instinct with Mick, because we sort of had like real-time song implementation already, and I had helped him out with so much of that stuff. It was like ingrained in my blood at that time. Like, oh yeah, you guys don't have to explain this to me. I know what we're gonna do. Um, so yeah, they did offer some gameplay. I don't think I got to see any of the boss fight stuff. They did show me what Nero looked like in his final form at one of the. I got to go to like one of the voice acting recordings where Johnny was recording, uh, and I got to meet him and Itsuno at the same time. I was not very calm, but I tried to be cool on the outside. I was like freaking out because I'm a '90s kid. I was born in the late '80s, so I grew up with Power Rangers, and I'm just looking at
Right.
Johnny, I'm like, Black Ranger. Just like freaking out. And then
Did you get
Itsuno
to
was
geek
there.
out? Did you get to geek out about Power Rangers with him?
No, I tried to keep it very cool and professional. They were
Aw.
working, and he did come out, and and they talked and chatted, and there was definitely time for that, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. My agent was the only one who even made me talk. He came up and he was like, "Hey, he wrote your theme song for this." And again, there's no trailer. We're talking about like summer of 2017 or something. Nobody had even heard or seen anything. Johnny probably never even heard or cared about the song at that point. And he's like, "Oh, okay, cool, nice to meet you." And I'm like, "Yeah, nice to meet you too." So
How
yeah,
often he gets that? Just like
yeah,
little fanboy moment.
oh yeah, totally.
Um, I do. I have a what's the weirdest compliment you've ever gotten as far as your music goes, or like the weirdest like fan moment you've had?
I wouldn't even know. Weirdest. I don't know. I've never had anybody really say anything inappropriate to me
Okay,
or
not
use
yet.
adjectives to describe my music in a funny way, I guess. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. Hopefully
S-
they don't start.
oh
They're
no, I
like,
hope I didn't give people ideas now.
right?
Sorry.
No, no, it's fine. No, nothing weird yet. I wish I could think of something because I'm sure something has made me laugh in the past and it's not coming back to me right now.
Speaking of weird things, what's the weirdest thing, or maybe the weirdest item that you've used as maybe an object to sample?
Well,
Like,
I
have
think
you
I've
ever
talked
used like?
about this before, but the opening of Bury the Light is just a paper towel dispenser against the marble top of my kitchen counter. It's just the most awful sound. I have that in my 3-hour upload of different music production stuff, but I basically turn off all the processing and I I play it. It literally just sounds like being dragged across a table. It's the most awful thing, but there are tonal qualities in there that I know if I put inside my DAW and I affect them the right way, we're gonna get like this really cool, like metallic, reverby sound that would be appropriate. And that's what you hear in the opening of Bury the Light is a paper towel dispenser being dragged across my kitchen counter.
How
I
did
love
you
that.
come
Like,
up with?
yeah,
Sorry,
like
go
when you
ahead.
mentioned that, it's like all I can hear now, but it makes me laugh, so I love it. But yeah, how did you come up with that?
How did that happen? Yeah, what happened?
I recorded that sound like 3 years before ever using it.
Oh wow.
Um, One of my old roommates at the time, he had one of those portable Tascam recorders, and I was like, "Well, I'm gonna borrow that real quick because I'm not dragging a mic into the kitchen. I'm too lazy for that." So there's video of me just kind of dragging it around with one hand and recording with the other, and just making all these terrible sounds in the house for like 2 minutes straight.
Like, don't mind me. I'm working here.
Yeah, yeah. Shh, nobody talk. I'm just gonna be really annoying for 2 minutes.
Is there like an object that you thought about using but haven't yet? Y- Like, like, do you look at something and be like, that would make a great noise?
I, I have one sound I haven't used yet. This is funny. This is in the before times when you could go to a movie theater, but I was using
Oh, those
I was using the
days.
bathroom and I flushed the urinal and it had like this really weird like tonal compressed sound, which was like I wish I could explain it, but it sounds like so industrial and grungy. I waited for everybody to leave. I turned on my iPhone recorder and I flushed the
You
toilet
recorded.
again. And I recorded it because I'm still trying to find a place for it in music because it's such a badass sound.
Hey, don't tell anyone. One day when you release a song, one of us is gonna discover it. Be like, that's it. That's the toilet noise.
That's the
We found
toilet
it.
noise. Yeah, I mean, there's also like one time I was, in my local downtown city here, and we walked by like an air conditioning unit that was making a really terrible sound, and I recorded it too, and I haven't found a place for that either.
Oh, there's a
Um,
collection.
yeah, and Allie's sort of been conditioned to think the same way because she knows how much we just like producers will grab random sounds. I'm not the first to do this, definitely. But producers will just hear anything like, oh, we should sample that. I could use that. So now, we'll hear like an awful car drive by or just any funny noise or the interesting noise. And she's like, oh, you should sample that.
Is that a
That's my
quality
life.
that
Well,
is that a quality that someone taught you, or was that just something that just sort of happened as you got better at making music? You started picking up like noises, and you're like, "Oh, that would probably sound dope in a song." Or
I
did
think it was
someone
more
say,
along the lines of having to make sounds, which was my first
"Right,
job before Mick, which is helping him make sounds. And I just realized there's all kinds of things you can get out of just about anything. I
mm,
mean, once I created a kick drum out of my friends screaming. And I think it's sort of like those avenues where you realize you can either turn anything into anything, or you can grab something interesting that has a quality already and make it more musical if possible, which is more fun.
that
is
kind of
there
reminds
any?"
me. You're. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Good.
No, I was gonna say like you're a big horror fan, right, Casey?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I feel like that makes so much sense because in a lot of horror movies, to create a monster's like noise, they'll take like weird sounds like that. They'll like drag a vacuum hose around the floor,
Mm.
and that would make the monster noise. So I feel like maybe some of your roots is like subconsciously there from like your horror background.
Yeah, probably. One of the things that we did for Hisako, which was one of the horror characters on Killer Instinct, I went to
Mhm.
a warehouse in Los Angeles here, and we were messing around with dry ice on metal, which is something if you ever done
Mm.
like middle school or high school science, where they show you how they react together. It's basically just a terrible squelch, and depending on the size of the resonator, it can react in different ways. But we put dry ice on a ladder, and there's video of me holding it, and you can just hear like this terrible like kind of screeching noise. But there was this one that did like this really neat tonal bend. It was like just a half step perfectly. And we used that as Hisako's scream and her opening cue. If anybody listens to the track Hisako, I don't remember the name of it. But if you look up Hisako's main theme or whatever, the very opening squelch is me putting dry ice on a ladder and then doing things to it in a DAW to make it more musical.
Feel like yeah, I can hear the intro. I would have never
Yeah.
guessed that. Village of Whispers, that's what it's called.
Yes, Village of Whispers. Thank you.
That's such a good song. Yeah, I didn't realize you worked on the beginning for that. I love the KI soundtrack so much.
Yeah, I touched like maybe 30-40% of the KI tracks in some
Oh
capacity.
wow.
But Mick did all the writing. I don't want to take any credit for anything I didn't do. All the genius was his. I was just like some crony Igor background servant, doing my best to learn.
What's he
Well,
like to work with? Because he is like the like one of the icons of sort of music.
Oh, he's like the
Like,
Dave Grohl of the game community.
yeah.
He's the nicest dude I've ever met in my entire life. He gave me way more credit, way more responsibility than I ever should have had that early. And he paid me way better than I should have ever been paid. He was very fair, and always extremely nice and humbling and happy to teach when he probably didn't have time to waste on me,
So
which
cool.
was always really nice. I'm forever grateful for that experience
That's
because
so
he's a
dope. Yeah.
busy guy, as you can imagine.
he does seem busy. I feel like yeah,
Yeah,
he's always working on something.
yeah.
Um, what's like what's something that you learned from him that you feel like you'll apply for the rest of your life?
Mm.
I think I spoke about this before, but it's funny. Like he used to try and teach me things that were just way over my head, and it could be something simple like I'm like, "Oh man, how do you make this sound like this?" And he was like, "Well, are you talking about sound design EQ, or are you talking about mixing EQ? Because they're not the same thing." Or sound design compression versus mixing compression. For instance, if I record a paper towel dispenser, how I affect that first to be palatable and not screechy is different than how I'm going to mix it into a song with other tracks. it took me like 4 years. One day, it's like a light bulb went off in my brain as I was working on something. I was like, that's what he meant. It's like, so I still have like these little Easter eggs of things that aren't helpful. Like, if you've ever reached out to anybody that you guys look up to about something that you're into as a hobby, you're like, how do you do this? And they give you an answer and it seems so blanket. And you're like,
Yeah.
well, I guess, okay, thanks. And then like maybe 2 years later, you're like, oh shit, that's what they meant.
Yeah, like when you're actually like hands-on, you can apply
Yeah.
it better. Yeah.
So it really, it's like, it's kind of when people say you kind of just have to get started and you just have to do it and get hands on as fast as possible. I think that's what that means. Like, someone can hold your hand for so long, but you're never really gonna like internalize it until you do it.
Would
So
you
just a
say
lot of
that's
moments like that.
would you say that's something that future musicians, or I mean really anybody creatively, like that's something that anyone can learn from?
Oh yeah, you want to write music? Right. It's gonna be terrible. You want to write a book? Write a book. Your first one's gonna be awful. Just get started
Mm.
fast. Get all the crap out of the way and learn how to like, I don't know, just
And
chisel your craft slowly but surely. And you'll also find your own voice in the process.
then maybe one day you'll work with Casey Edwards himself.
Blink and hope.
Um, okay, I got a question here. It's a bit of a big question. It's a two-parter, so I do apologize for that. It was a friend that sort of put it together for me. He said, basically that the sort of gist of it was that Kota Suzuki, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but in-house Capcom sort of producers, yourself and the RE2 producer, you all use the digital audio workspace Cubase. Is that correct? That's yeah. So
Yeah, I don't know if Coda uses Cubase or not, but I wouldn't be surprised.
my friend said that. I don't know if that's true. I apologize. That could be wrong, but according to him, he said that was the case, and he was wondering if it was a if that was a standard, a required standard between composers at Capcom, or if that was just coincidence. That was just
Feel like
like
coincidence.
yeah,
Totally coincidence. I mean, there's millions of Cubase users, I'm sure, but for me, it started out as I used Guitar Pro first, which is basically like a generic MIDI program because I used to only be a guitar player. I'm talking like 2005, 2006 when I first started. And I moved over to FL Studio. Someone gave me a cracked copy of that. By the way, buy your stuff if you can. I'll get into that in a second. But someone gave me a torrented version of FL Studio. You know, I was broke as hell and I needed to get started. They gave me some cracked version of that, and then someone gave me a cracked version of Nuendo, which is like the kind of like the fancier big brother to Cubase.
yep,
And I just kind of stuck with that. And then when I was in school and I finally had enough money saved up, I bought the educational version of Cubase. I could finally, you know, afford real software. I was like, well, I have to start investing into my career now and being a little bit more legit. So it was all accident. Just people handing me cracked copies of things that I got used to, and I didn't want to have to relearn anything. Laziness.
Relearning software is hard. I don't blame you.
yeah.
Then
Like
you
I
have
don't.
people like Mick, for instance, just to bring him up again. He uses FL Studio, Ableton, and Pro Tools, probably all pretty equally,
He
and
uses all
he's very
three.
good. Yeah,
That's
I think
crazy.
he hates
Yeah.
Cubase. Funny enough. So not every DAW is for everybody. You know, I think he's told me how much he doesn't like that software, but I know he uses and loves FL Studio and Ableton a lot to make the sounds that he makes for different reasons, and I know he mixes, I think, exclusively in Pro Tools these days. So
That's crazy. I'm just
Yeah.
glad he loves Ableton. That makes me happy because I am a yeah. That's my go-to. But
yeah, I mean, just get good at what you have, man. There's no
that's it.
like
Yeah, exactly.
Diva is not going to sound better in Cubase than it sounds in Ableton. It There's very minor discrepancies that nobody's going to hear.
Like in FL Studio too. Like some people have made crazy songs from FL Studio that like it's just crazy to me. Like if I look at that, I don't understand what's going on. But
Yeah.
if I was to look at Ableton, yeah, it's just what you're comfortable with.
So for somebody who does not work in music production whatsoever, between the different softwares you guys are talking about, can you create the same sound? Is it pretty much just like the UI that's different, or
Yeah, I would say it's just like, for instance, if you're making like dubstep automation, for instance, which takes quite a bit. If you have everything like hooked up to macros and they're not like on LFOs, which are like things that do it automatically for you when you hit a key. Um, Drawing lanes are pretty easy to see in FL Studio in comparison to Cubase, I will say. Automation lanes, they're still not bad in Cubase. I know how to get around it, but it doesn't look the same as FL Studio. FL Studio looks a little bit more friendly, but I think it was a little bit more EDM centric when it was being built. So that would make sense that it would cater more to those things. Kind of like how I wouldn't dare dream about scoring a film or any video in FL Studio because that sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cubase has a great video engine. So yeah.
It's worth mentioning too that the different softwares, they come with their own little gizmos, like VSTs, for example. Like I use some of the FL Studio plugins, like I think it's saturation that I use, and some other things from FL Studio. So
Yeah, FL comes with actually some very generous stuff like a
aye,
Harmor and
aye.
Citrus and yeah, all kinds of cool stuff.
So a sound that you make B would probably be, it will sound different from software to software purely because of the different tools that each software provides you with, and that's if you sort of disregard third party plugins
Yeah,
like
but
the
I can
stuff.
also
So what?
use FL Studio's Harmor synth inside of Cubase, which I've done several times.
Yeah.
I think that was part of the opening of Bury the Light too. I think I did some resampling of a Harmor synth.
Oh really? Oh well.
Yeah.
Write that down.
So yeah, in a sense, yes and no. Like Mills is saying, like if you're using like exclusive, FL Studio stuff, it's gonna sound a little bit different. But the effect may generally be the same by the time you get to the end of it. Not the one-to-one sound, but the effect.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can't just like hear a song and be like, that was made in FL Studio.
Oh no,
No, it
Okay.
would be hard to tell. Yeah.
no.
So
You would have
I was like somewhat envisioning, like, is it that obvious or am I just that
to,
clueless?
no, you would have to squeeze it out of the producer. Like
Maybe
we're
some
gonna.
like because I know people make
Right,
like
him.
Ableton strips. I forget what they're called, like the little thing at the bottom. But people make a lot of those, and they probably have a lot of sound characteristics that people might be used to, especially if a
Oh,
lot of people download the same ones.
what do you call those? The audio racks? I think that's what
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
called.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
The rack.
yeah.
Yeah, someone might be familiar with an Ableton rack that you can only put in Ableton in that specific way.
Yeah.
But other than that, no one's gonna really be like, "Oh, I know that was made in Cubase," because yeah, no.
There's like a human calculator out there who could probably tell.
Probably, yeah. And
Maybe.
it does, like, regardless of the software you're using, there's going to be tools that you can use to somewhat replicate the sound. So there's not too much. It's not like there's a software that's like, oh, that's the go-to that makes things sound better. It's just, it's like Casey said, it's preference. What you're more
Mhm.
comfortable with and what you learned.
Yeah, it'd be like telling someone that you're like, "Oh, that was definitely color corrected in Resolve and not Adobe Premiere." Like,
Yeah.
how could you
Exactly.
tell?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
The second part of my question, Casey, was well, it's not my question. I'm still in the question. It was my friend
It's
Eddie
your
Neal.
question now.
My question now, yeah. Was there any work between Suzuki and Co and yourself that you had to share between each other? Or was it just a case of you were doing your tracks on your own and then Suzuki and his team would handle their side of the score internally? Because some of the tracks have shared credits, for example, like I don't know, like the Jewel, I don't know, like the Devil Trigger Devil Shocker remix.
I think I know what
Was
they're
there?
getting at. Yeah, it was the
Yeah,
latter.
yeah.
We
Right,
were
okay.
working separately. But for instance, like you said, Devil Trigger, I deliver all the stems, including a stereo mix that we mixed with Daniel Cresco, by the way, which was a big thing for me getting to mix with him. He did like a lot of the Dark Knight soundtrack. He did the Joker soundtrack. He used to work with Johan Johansson before he passed away, and he works with Hildur now, which is incredible. And getting to work with him in Hans Zimmer's studio mixing Devil Trigger was like some weird like
Hmm.
awesome bucket list for me. Sorry, I had to just that was really fun for me. But anyways, we mix all these things. We give them the stereo mix and the stems, and they take these stems and they can do whatever they want with them. Sort of like the intro. Whenever you're in the van with Nico and Nero, and you have that really cool Devil Trigger. There was a section in there that goes halftime. I didn't write it halftime because I wrote my track specifically to be for the fight. We couldn't really necessarily go halftime because that brings the energy way down, and that's sort of like a big no in the middle of a fight. But for a cool slow motion badass sequence, that was perfect. That they took those samples that I made that one section halftime drum beat. They did stuff like that a lot, like the Devil Trigger remix you're talking about. And even a little bit more creatively, Bury the Light, you'll hear towards the end whenever you're rolling all the post Mission 20 credits. I
Mhm.
believe Coda or somebody on the team did an orchestral arrangement of Bury the Light because
Mm.
you'll hear the strings, they're doing the da 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 da
Yeah.
da da, da,
Mhm.
which is also Devil Trigger, but we don't have to get into that. But they were using that reharmonized version of Devil Trigger that I did for Bury the Light for their own ending orchestral arrangement. So it was nice to hear them take some inspiration and use established themes as a continuity thing. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, it definitely works. Yeah, it's super dope.
I do love that you threw in some Devil Trigger and Bury the Light.
Oh yeah,
It
I wrote that early. I think I hadn't gotten very far into Bury the Light, and I knew that I wanted to do like this reharmed version as sort of like a climax. I think I've
mm,
spoken about this before too. I didn't know if I was ever going to get to come back. Plus, I felt like it was integral to show Nero and Virgil's shared DNA through music as well. So, yeah, it was fun for me to get to have a little bit of fun, which I guess is why Guitar Solo was able to be self-serving there. That whole section is self-serving.
Plus, thematically it works because Virgil and Nero are directly
Yeah,
related. So it's super cool how you sort of made that correlate musically. It's dope.
yeah.
Super
I'm glad they let me get away with that because it didn't really sound like the rest of the
dope.
song, but it sort of sounds like an inevitability by the time you get to it.
What was the process with Victor Barba? Did Capcom come to you, or was he someone that you saw and you wanted to work with anyway, and it was just like, oh, he would be dope for this song? Or did you have Ali as a sort of prospect for the song, and then maybe at any point Capcom, like, what was the process there? Who was the one that came up with the idea
I
for
think it
Victor?
didn't take me long to realize that I wanted male vocals. Once I got
Right.
off the phone, and it was like the whole like, "Hey, do you want to work with Devil May Cry again?" deal, and it was for Virgil, and I'm like, "Oh shit!" Like, I feel like we have like narrow level of like lore and stuff, and then we have like Virgil, and it's like I had all these things that I was trying to like think about, and I was like, well, it's gonna be epic, and I think I want male vocals for this, and then I just sort of like started spiraling into like what the hell am I gonna do? Started looking at covers, and one of the first covers I found was Victor singing an anime opening, Monster or something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but he was singing full chest voice, high falsetto. He had an incredible tone. He had a massive range. And then I found a Periphery cover, and he was screaming his head off. And I was like, "This is perfect. This is exactly what I need. I need
the
all
guy.
this stuff into this one song." Um,
That's
I still had
crazy.
to offer up Capcom 3 options as singers just because they have to do their due diligence as well. But I was like, please, Victor, the other singers are incredible. Don't get me wrong. But I was like, this is the guy. Like, you have to let me use him. Please. Like, just don't mess that up.
Just trust me
It,
on this.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy. Like even in the car, like alone, I cannot hit those notes that he hits. Like he is ridiculously talented. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think
You should listen to Vacant Surrender. He goes even higher than that. I believe he hits like a high F, and he's still chest voice. I don't understand this kid's range. I say kid, he's an adult. Um, but this guy's range is off the chain. Like he really is an incredible singer, and he was able to pull off everything that I wanted to do for that song, which is kind of all over the place.
so dope that it came from him doing covers. That's crazy. Yeah, that's so
Yeah.
cool. Yeah,
Actually, yeah,
yeah.
I actually I went to his Instagram like somewhat recently. I saw a bunch of anime covers. I had no idea he did that, and they're all incredible.
Yeah, he
He's
does everything from like Justin Bieber to like the most like heavy metal shit you can imagine to Linkin
yeah,
Park covers, and
his
he
range
does
is
such a good
wild.
job. Yeah, he's incredible.
Would you want to work with him again? I feel like that's an easy answer.
Yeah, no, I think I've talked about this before too, but I always think of like you can't just be an incredible singer. I'm like a casting director of sorts when I write music.
Mm.
I have a very specific tone in my head, which is why I was like, it has to be Victor. Like this is the guy. But in my head, I'm always thinking about like tonal qualities being the same as like I guess visual aesthetic for an actor when you want to see someone play a specific part. Like someone other than Robert Downey Jr. playing Iron Man, good luck with that.
Yeah.
The next Wolverine.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's doable,
Yeah,
but
it would just
it's
be so
those are the kind of
strange to.
yeah, those are the kind of choices I think about. I just there's a lot that goes in my mind other than just being an awesome singer. Like Mariah
Yeah.
Carey's a good singer. I don't want to hear her own Devil Trigger.
Yo, Mariah Carey cover when?
Well, now
All I
you
want for
mentioned it,
Christmas is Devil Trigger.
yeah, like a Christmas version of Devil Trigger, that could be dope. That could be like the next
Is she,
big
is
like the
she on
MC6
like Cameo or whatever? I'll pay for
Christmas.
this right now.
Yeah, but no, I would love to work with Victor again if I ever have the right song for sure.
Yeah, that it's cool that you know that you can't just work with them for the sake of working for them. That you know that it has to be the right song. That's cool. That's super dope. Yeah, I'm just gonna big you up because that's just the coolest thing ever. The fact that he came from like YouTube covers to that song is so ridiculously cool.
Yeah, I think he
Yeah,
told me he thought my message was fake to him at first, which is so funny to me because I'm like,
that's what I thought when you were
oh
in my
yeah, when I was
chat.
dropping
It's
in his
like,
well, the
oh,
funny thing is like who would impersonate me? I'm not even like, I joke I can't even be called a Z-list celebrity because that like entices that I might be celebrity at all. I'm like on the waiting list, Z-list on the waiting list.
List.
But just
See,
the fact
list on
that
the waiting
anybody
list.
would try to impersonate me is hilarious.
I think he sort of was on the same wavelength as you too. Like because you were watching different people's streams, he was going to different people's videos and stuff and
Mm,
commenting. So it was cool to see someone again be sort of willing to be involved in the community, much like yourself. That was super dope. So it's like a match made in heaven. Great.
yeah,
I
it's
don't, yeah,
fun.
when you, Ali, and Victor were my stream once, and I was just like, oh my god, what is happening?
Yeah, I
Like a little
messaged all of
reunion.
them. I was like, you have to drop into the stream. We're gonna
I
mess with her
know.
for a bit.
You had
I
all
was
three
just
of them
like,
in your stream, B? What the
yeah, and
hell?
I couldn't play. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I was just making Virgil jump for a bit. Just like, hey guys. um, that's a pretty good question. So you were in chat earlier mentioning that you looked at fan translations when writing the lyrics for Bury the Light. Do you remember any of the materials you used?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
I was reading Visions of V and I was reading the DMC3 manga a bunch. I even watched some YouTube videos that were doing explanations of like Virgil lore dumps and stuff, just to anything that I could get into my head. It might not be anything specific, but someone might say the right word. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden my brain's gonna like go off. Like I was listening or watching all DMC3 cutscenes. And I get up to that part with Arkham and he's like, a storm is approaching. And
They're like,
Virgil's
that's
like,
the line.
I was like,
He looked at him like, that's my line now.
I was like, hold up. Yeah. Just little things like that. Like I was watching someone else's video and I think they were the ones who said how was it? I'm trying to remember my own lyrics now. Beyond the tree. That's
Mhm.
what it was. In the bridge. I think I remember seeing that one picture that they had showed on their video and that's when I was like, which I got to look up the DMC3 manga now and I remember going through all that and I was like, yeah, just beyond the tree there's a house on fire. So it was like just YouTube videos, mangas, the translations, anything that I could find in that as well. Yeah, so that's where some of the lines came from for sure.
I like how simple it is, just like a simple manga panel that just like pretty much writes lyrics for you. That's I love
Right.
that. It's so simple, but it's so powerful when you hear it in the song.
Yeah, that's might be my favorite section.
I do like that one.
Yeah.
Was
Okay.
there any sounds from the Devil May Cry games that you ever wanted to sample, or was that
I never thought about it, to be
never thought
honest.
about it?
No.
I have to do like a playthrough, and it's like, okay, Casey, listen out for any sounds that you might like.
Well,
Like,
that might be a distraction because if you've ever
That's
played a game for
true.
any amount of time, the sound designer's job is to make you like have a reaction. It's almost like the dogs salivating at the sound of a bell thing. We react certain way to certain sounds, like, oh, I knew I just got a level up, or I knew I just got hit, or someone's about to fire an arrow at me, or anything like that. We become like we just understand like this is part of the world. And if I were to put that in my music, that would be very confusing to anybody who's played this game or gets used to playing the game and then they start hearing sounds like, oh shit, like, oh wait, no, nothing's happening. It's just the song.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. Yeah,
It's
that's
like you
actually.
if you have like a text tone of something familiar and then like you hear it like in a like what is it? Like I have Virgil, where's your motivation as my text tone. So when I hear that in the game, I'm like, oh, I got a text. Like
Yep.
it'd have that reaction.
Yep. That used to happen to
um,
me back when I was like watching Psych or something on Netflix and they had like
yeah.
the first like iPhone 3 ringtone and I wasn't expecting to hear it on TV. I was like, well, who's calling me?
Right.
I was like, oh yeah.
You mentioned going through video lore or videos for lore. Is there a character from the past games that you think you might want to write a theme for?
Oh yeah, I think I've answered this before. I would love to write a theme for Lady.
Yes.
Yeah,
Should just
I feel like even if I couldn't think of anything lore wise that is of importance, she's got two bazookas and she's badass. Like, what more do you need to write about?
What does
write
that
like the
song
most
sound
like
like?
heaviest song.
What does
Yeah,
that song sound like in your head? What is it? What are you thinking when you think of Lady? Like, what does that sound like to you?
oh, we can't drop all of the secrets.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I've
All
had
right,
like
just one
I've
word.
had some lines like running through my head before in the past that might work pretty well, but I don't know. We'll see. I'll have to hang on to them for
not
if that
even
ever happens or a song of my own. We'll see.
not even lyrics, just like like heavy rock, or what do you think of when you think of like Lady shooting guns, jumping around? Is there any specific sort of like, for example, Nero? You're thinking of that EDM sort of sound that he has. Obviously,
Mm.
Dante has the heavier rock sort of subhuman song sound. What sound do you think Lady has?
I think it would be part discovery. I think obviously it's Devil May Cry. It has to be somewhat heavy, right? We
Yeah.
have to we have to have something, especially if it's a battle track. It really just depends on the context. Um, she was having like some, Gohan transformation moment. It wouldn't necessarily be, heavy rock, but it might have heavy rock influences. But no, for
Yeah.
me, it would be discovery. You kind of just start and you find the character. That's what I'm talking about earlier when I like get all engrossed in something. I kind of just like let it keep washing over me over and over and over again. And I feel like as you start to watch your music against something, it kind of tells you if it's going to work or not. It
Yeah.
pretty much tells you if you're doing a bad job immediately. Which
Is
is
there any
oh, go
songs
ahead.
that you worked on for like, I don't know, maybe let's say like 20 hours, and then you're just like you just completely scrapped it and it turned into a different song?
I don't know, like 90% of everything I've ever
Okay.
touched.
Because you said like, but before when you were writing the other songs, like mostly from conception to release, it was like pretty much what you've always envisioned. I wasn't sure if like that was your method for most songs.
It can be like Vacant Surrender started out because I bought a plugin. I don't think that's ever happened before. I was just playing around with a
It
plugin
inspired you.
and I wrote a verse and I was like, oh well shit, I have to make a song out of this now.
What plugin was it?
Saturn by Fat Filter, Saturn 2. It's a really cool multi-band distortion plugin.
Aye, that's pretty
Yeah.
cool. Like the full Fab Filter pack, and this is just getting off topic, but honestly, everything that Fab Filter does is just so dope. Like
Oh yeah.
oh yeah, like
I won't
Fab
bore
Filter.
everybody in chat, but yeah, they're definitely the top of my go-to.
I have been trying to just avoid saying things like this to board chat because they're just going to be like, "What is that weird Scottish guy about?" But Fab Filter Saturn and things like that is so dope. Like especially for things for me for like bass lines and stuff, chin up and it's
Yeah, and like I have like a graveyard of in every session that I work on. Like Vacant Surrender has a bunch of ideas that I just shove at the end. Bury the Light has maybe half the length of the song, if not more, of just rejected ideas that I just throw at the end, just in case I ever want to come back to them for something else. The song that I just started maybe about a month ago that I'm working on was something that I accidentally wrote for another video game, but it wasn't fitting at the time, but it was a cool bass sound. So I just took that into another session while I work on this other game. So it's like I kind of find inspiration on accident all the time. But once I get the idea going, like for instance, Vacant Surrender started out as an accident. But once I had the verse, I started a piano skeleton of that track to make sure I had a clear vision of where it was going.
to go listen. Go.
You're cutting out a little bit, Mills.
Can you hear me? Hello.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you're good now.
It's because I was talking too quiet. I was trying to resist the echo in this goddamn asylum room. But no, I'll need to go listen to that because you've been talking it up quite a few times. It sounds super dope, so I'll go check it out after this. Apologize for not checking it out before. I didn't realize that you released a song with Victor.
No, it's no problem. I have one that I did of Vacant Surrender too, which is a full breakdown and it explains how I stumbled across that effect too. So go ahead and check it out if you want.
Magnifying glass is coming out. You know how it is.
Yeah.
Oh, how the hell did they come up with that? Oh, good. Yeah.
I haven't been paying attention to chat this whole time. I feel bad.
And please use the phrase "a piano skeleton" as an album title. That does sound pretty great. I
Oh,
was
it's
thinking
Lisa.
the
Hey,
same.
Lisa, how are you? Another cool person that I've ran into in the DMC community. I'm sure
Yay,
there's
we're all
several people here
friends
in chat.
here. There's a ton of people.
Is there any video games that you look at and you were like, oh man, I wish I could make a song for that game? Is there any that sort of sticks? Like for example, Doom. Mick Gordon works in that. Have you ever sort of looked at like a video game and been like, I wish I could do a song for that. This could be dope.
I mainly hear that more as like inspiration. I never want to like step on the toes of people who have
Yeah.
already started something or try to do a one-to-one copy. Like I'm not gonna be able to do Mick. That's Mick. Same with like old like Halo. I can't be Marty. You know, Marty established that sound. That would just be doing Marty. But there's several games I look at and I'm like, damn, that's inspiring to look at. Like whether it be something as beautiful as Ori or something as soul crushing as Doom. I'm hoping to play Hyper Light Drifter soon, and I just love the aesthetic of that game and the soundtrack that Disaster Piece did for it. But the thing is, the things that they came up with as having like no music, like just make a world, and then they made this world. Like I would have never created it the same way they would have created it. So I guess
So
we
you-
just.
Sorry,
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, you always look at things. You don't really. Whenever you're brought onto something, you just look at it as a fresh sort of slate for yourself. You don't go back and you.
Yeah, because I feel like if I look at another game, I'm saying, would I like to write in that style? And the answer is yeah, sure, that would be a lot of fun. That's actually really fun. But to start a project from fresh and have no musical preconceptions of what's supposed to happen and you get to build that world, to me, that's infinitely more exciting.
Yeah, that's dope.
Yeah, it's also
Well-
more terrifying.
I would love to hear you work on a horror game, especially just like anything super atmospheric. So if anyone's listening,
Yeah, I've been bothering people. We'll see what happens, but no, that would be so much
fingers
fun.
crossed.
Yeah, no, I would love to work on a horror period and animation. I love both of those things just because animation can be so open-ended in terms of what you can achieve visually.
Mhm.
In horror, just because I mean you get things like as cliche as like slashers, like Friday the 13th and stuff like that, which are fun. John Carpenter's done some really badass scores for stuff like that in the past, but then you have things like Midsummer, which has like this not cliche music at all. It's like actually almost kind of happy, and that in itself, the paradox is frightening. So I don't know. It's a big playground to have fun with.
It also sounds like you could like sort of excel in a horror game in terms of just coming up with Foley. Like messing around with a toilet tube.
Mm.
Like that would be like I imagine that would be something that's on your bucket list. Like, do like a bunch of Foley sounds for like a horror game. Scratch like a couple of items against the table and see what we can come up with. Like that sounds, yeah, it's super cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
horror definitely lends itself to more musical sound
yeah,
design in that kind of aspect for sure.
sweet. Have you ever listened to Gunship, Casey? He's a good artist. He's a synthwave artist.
I haven't.
If it's the one I'm thinking of,
Yeah,
great
there's
artist.
like poppy synthwave from what I recall.
Yeah.
Unless they change their sound.
Do you listen to any synthwave, Casey? Fan
I
of
listen
any?
to so much, and I'm really terrible at remembering artists' names.
Yeah, like
You seem so
yeah.
exhausted. You're like, I listen to so much, you guys.
Like, we just know it's like it's hard to say because I'll listen to like 1930s big swing jazz, and then I'll listen to Mick, Meat Hook from Doom. I kind of jump all over the place. I really like pop music, like Dua Lipa and Charlie Puth and stuff like that. Sigrid's one of my favorite artists. She's a European artist who's really good in like the pop world. I don't know, man. Like it's all over the place. Like symphonies, I love orchestral music. I studied all that stuff. I'm a big nerd as well.
I
So
feel like
disco, funk, whatever.
to be in your position, though, I feel like you do have to have such a wide palette because you have to be so creative with like the things you're doing. You're like making music for different worlds and stuff. Like it definitely seems like a good thing to have such a wide palette of music that you can draw inspiration from. So that does make sense. Yeah,
Yeah, and it is to a certain degree. It needs to be sincere too. Like if someone asked me to write like a historically accurate, four voice counterpoint canon or something like that. I remember my good old days in like species counterpoint class in college where I could go through and do that and have fun with it. But it's not as fun as maybe just doing something inspired by Gothic period music, like Bury the Light, where it has like some cool chord changes and stuff. It's like very different.
Is
So yeah.
there is there a genre of music that you are like you didn't used to like until you became a musician?
Oh yeah, I used to be a pop snob for sure. I used to only listen to
Okay.
like Symphony X and Dream Theater, and if it's not prog metal, then you're not doing what you're supposed to do. Like four chords, that's so lame. But it just turns out like being able to condense an idea into a simplest form has been like the most difficult thing. Like I can run whole tone scales and harmonic minor stuff all day and write guitar solos and sweeps and create like this energetic piece. But imagine trying to like simplify something into four chords and you're trying to just hammer it home and you have 2.5 minutes to get their attention. And usually you're going to lose it in the first 20 seconds if you don't do something interesting. Um, they're very different. They're just very different. Both are totally fine. I've been a very big proponent over maybe like the past 8 years or so of not gatekeeping music. I never really
Good thing to
liked
do.
people. Yeah, I know, but I used to be a total butthole about it, so I kind of have to check myself. But there's like a thing I remember seeing this one article about country music and rap music where some people will say, "Oh, you're not country enough for country music," or "You didn't grow up in the right neighborhood for this rap music," and it's like they would gatekeep themselves from people being able to enjoy it. Um, I'm from Tennessee, so maybe I'm allowed to like country music, but I'm not from Compton, so I'm not allowed to listen to the NWA, stuff like that. I think that's just stupid. Kind of
Yeah,
like how I
because
don't like that people have to put on like a three-piece suit to go watch Mozart. I wish people would stop snubbing their noses at people for different reasons.
yeah,
It's
let me
just
put on
music.
my Goosebumps shirt. Dang it!
and
Yeah,
it's
All I
like
right? I
want.
mean, it's just sound waves that hit our ears and it either makes us smile or not.
exactly.
Yeah.
I'm never gonna stop listening to NWA, homie. I'm like so far away from Compton, I don't even care, homie. That stuff just bangs, and it's the same with country music. Like, like the Highwaymen. I'm not a
Yeah,
country boy, but that stuff is just Willie Nelson. Come on,
No,
can't gatekeep.
I never understand people who gatekeep music because it's just like, why is it your business what's pleasing to my ears? You know?
You
And
know, it's
like,
the,
Yeah.
it's the
and a
same
lot
thing.
of time, sorry, real quick, just like a lot of times, like music hits your like your emotions. There's like a reason you might like a particular song, and some person on the internet is telling you like you're not allowed to feel this like emotional bond with the song. Like, no.
Yeah, I don't mind it when people share with me their opinions though, even if it's I don't want to say negative, but just not a good
Right,
experience.
right.
Like, oh, I don't like Devil Trigger. Like, cool, that's fine.
Yeah,
That's
that's
chill.
fair.
Yeah, like
I
it
do
doesn't hurt my
disagree.
feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt my feelings at all. And you sort of like to be in this business anyways, you have to have a thick skin because the producers might be the one telling you that. And you got to
Mm.
start over. So, yeah.
Oh man, is there a song? Is there a part of a song or something that you really enjoyed that a producer was like telling you to scrap it, and you felt like really sad about it?
Oh, it happens all the time more in film stuff.
Oh,
Like you like
okay.
score a whole scene and they're like, I hate it. And you're like, cool,
Oh
I'll just
no.
do it again, I guess.
Have you have you ever
Yeah.
recycled anything from that to like original music? Have you ever taken anything that was like a producer said, oh that doesn't work, and you were like, okay, put that in the old backlog, and then maybe there was a song that you were making, and it's like,
If you
I'm
don't
gonna
like it,
give
I'll
it
take it.
a
I think I've
yeah.
done it like 100 times and I've never recycled it. I'm always like, well, fine, I'll use it on something else. But every project is so like uniquely its own, I just never end up doing it.
I was gonna ask something regarding the subject, and I forgot. Oh no.
I'm gonna cover for you while you think about it. Any
Thanks,
demo
buddy.
versions of Devil Trigger that we can ever hear? Maybe no. Any demo versions anytime soon?
Oh no, no. They
Come on,
accidentally
hurry up.
leaked. Capcom themselves leaked a demo version on one of their live streams because I remember everyone was tagging me in it or something like, when are we gonna get this version? And it was like some lyrics that I had changed or something because they didn't work too well. And I'm like, why? First of all, I only sent that to like the audio team. How did this like sub marketing team who's doing a live stream end up with the wrong version of Devil Trigger? And I was just like, this is going to be a nightmare because people always want what they can't have, no matter if it's good or not. They just want that version, period. And of course, they're like, can we have it? Can we have it? Can we have it? I'm like, first of all, no. And second of all, it's not even up to me. Like, I can't leak or give any amount of information before, during, or after the release of a song that belongs to a game company.
Oh man, I felt so bad. Like when Bury the Light came out, people kept asking you for like the stems for Bury the Light, and you're like, I can't. Like
Sure.
every like hour, you gotta answer the same
Yeah.
question.
Sure, dog. Let me
Yeah,
send those to you real quick. Let me break my contract and get in some litigation real quick.
Right.
I'm just not gonna comment on that because I definitely didn't do that. What are you talking about, Rudy? What are you talking about?
I mean, okay. As an individual, it's fair to ask, but like from Casey's perspective, like imagine getting that like every day.
I
Oh,
never
dog.
asked for
Some stems.
I never asked for stems, but I did. I might have, and I do apologize, Casey. I should have done that, but I did say to Victor, like, oh, if at any point you stumble across any acapellas for Bury the Light, just in case,
Yeah, right.
yeah, didn't happen though, so I understand.
He knows.
He knows, yeah, he knows, and he didn't even reply either, so that's probably a good sign that it was a.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but usually that's the best response is no response.
If you don't ask, you don't get, but I do understand. It's
I don't blame anybody for trying. I just
yeah,
stopped responding these days.
that's fair enough.
'Cause it's like,
Yeah.
it doesn't. I
You're just
think I've
better
tweeted
off.
about it. Yeah, I think I've tweeted about it like 3 or 4 times. But the fallacy of that is if I don't pin it, and if they don't go to like Twitter, they're never gonna see it. So I
On
just
the other
stopped responding. Somebody else will answer it, and usually it happens like he's already said he can't, and I'm just like, thank you. I'm just.
Yeah, that's what. At that point, just leave it to the community. We'll take care
Yeah.
of you.
on the other hand, and because I do sort of remixes of the Devil May Cry songs, like there is a sort of you do gain an appreciation of the original song when you try and not copy, like emulate parts of it. 'Cause it's so
Mhm.
difficult. Like for example, you're listening to Devil Trigger and you're like, how did he do that? How do I replicate that sound? It doesn't work. I'm so
I think I
lost. So
shared with people how I made like the Bury the Light sound. I think I showed the original preset, where it came from, what it used to sound like, and then how I turned it into what it turned into. So anybody could recreate that sound.
yeah,
I mean, they probably shouldn't because it's kind of, at least if they're writing like a metal track just like that, it might sound a little bit too much like that. It's like
yeah.
following like an NI Massive tutorial on how to make that Skrillex wub sound. I'm like, well, he kind of already did that. it's interesting and you'll learn something, but maybe don't put it in your own track if it's supposed to be a personal release and not a remix or a reimagining of.
Yeah, if you're selling it as something original, yeah, 100%. But at the same
Yeah.
time, I sort of, it's like you say, if you're sort of just trying to learn sound design or whatever, what do they call that? There's another word I'm looking for. I can't
Oh,
remember.
I
But
think
if you,
copying things is the best way you can start out. Like, I like that guitar tone. How do I make that guitar tone? Or I like that kick drum, or this drum set sounds cool. I'm gonna copy it. That should be like the first 2 years of your life.
100%. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like learning to draw. You just sort of start off, do it. I mean, I can't comment on that, but for me, it was just a case of play the sounds. Don't emulate the sounds because I was trying to do it for a different genre of music, but play the notes and then see where it
Mm,
goes. I definitely feel like that benefits someone better than just being like, here's the stems, slap a plug in on it and it sounds different,
yeah.
and there you go. So
I will
I
say I got
guess,
one of my biggest growths as a producer by studying stems. I know it seems kind of counterproductive for me to sit here and say, stop asking me for my stems. But I mean, I can't give them out. But you can find tons of multi tracks from bands like Foo Fighters and Queen and all kinds of way more important bands than anything I would ever release. And we're talking about top producers and mixers that have mixed these things, and you can listen to what they sound like alone. And
yeah,
I first got that experience with Mick and how important it was to hear what he was sending me stem wise as we were working together. And I'm like, oh shit, like that's what those drums sound like by themselves. I never would have done that because they sound so different in the track. I was trying to make them sound like that. And that was a big stepping point for me production wise on how to get like to where I want to be in a song, for instance.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because I feel like a lot of just creators in general, when they're trying to learn something, they just want the big picture. It's
Yeah.
they sometimes you don't think about like just trying to pinpoint one problem at a time. And
Mhm.
with stems, like with trying to emulate a stem, you can emulate, and learn from it, and then apply it to like the big picture, as I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that could like you guys are talking music, but I'm like trying to get back into art. So like every time you guys are talking about music, I can sort of apply it to art. So it's
there's a
kind of
lot of
nice now.
crossover. Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah, like
yeah,
Ali works full time in the animation industry, like I said, and I've seen her watch tutorials in art, and it's like if you see someone achieve a Photoshop effect with like 10 layers, it wasn't one brush.
right.
It
Yeah,
takes steps,
exactly.
and being able to
It's
see that process is really helpful.
it is. Yeah, especially when you do look at a picture, it's just like when you try to emulate a picture, you're just like, this is like way over my head. But when
Yeah,
you break it down, I love how things creative are just pretty much universal in this regard. So for any of you creators out there, like this applies to everyone.
it's
yep.
even something that sort of crosses over, and just to bore you, Casey, about the gameplay side of Devil May Cry for a moment, but when we sort of the people who make combos in those games, when we go around creating those, I feel like there's a lot of crossover between that and writing music, because when you create a combo in one of these games, it's a sequence. It's you're performing a sequence, and I feel like there's a lot of crossover between that and creating music. Like for example, MIDI. You're doing sequences. There's a lot of crossover with it, and I feel like it's one of the reasons why music in Devil May Cry is so important, is because it's one of those games that sort of encourages something along that sort of wavelength. I don't know if I'm confusing this or making it sound bigger than it is, but I feel like I feel like ever since getting into music more, I've sort of found a new appreciation for sort of the combo side of Devil May Cry. I don't know if that does that make sense. Am I
I
talking?
Yeah,
think it
no,
does.
I
Yeah,
makes
It
sense.
feels like there's a lot of crossover there, and it's super cool. It's such a unique sort of genre in game. It's just cool how involved the music producers of the game actually are. It's super dope. It's like,
yeah. I mean, plus there's a
uh,
whole excuse
yeah,
me, there's a whole reward system built into the music implementation of Devil May Cry that rewards the players for completing
yeah,
say combos. No pun
yeah,
Oh
intended.
man, yeah. No,
exactly,
seriously,
yeah,
we need more games like when you're doing well, the game rewards you just by feeling
exactly,
cool. We need more of that.
yeah.
Right.
Like that whole thing is just like if you're doing that for the first time, it's just the dopest thing. Like,
Yeah, seriously, like when the lyrics first kick in because you get like an S rank, it's just so
I
sick.
think like you don't even get lyrics in Silver Bullet in Mission 20 unless you hit S rank or something like that. I think it's all
yeah,
instrumental, right? Unless you hit
yeah.
S rank.
I
Yeah.
think Is it, or is it when you press Devil Trigger? I cannot remember. I am such
Well,
a
the
nerd.
the music kicks in when you're in Devil Trigger, but the lyrics don't kick in
You
until
don't kick it until
you
you're
do
S
better.
rank.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
because
it's
I
the
remember I was
dopest
playing
thing,
it and I was like all those IGN journalists. I was like, where the hell are my lyrics?
Yeah. Oh man,
Yeah.
that's that's such a smart way to like call out journalists.
Right.
Best.
Yeah, it's like the music just all
Freaking
sounds the same.
Capcom's
It's
like,
just repeating over and over again.
yeah, where are the
Dismal.
lyrics?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the genre itself definitely lends itself towards it. I don't think any other genre could lend itself towards that sort of philosophy. Like maybe a racing game if you're in front. I don't know. It just feels like this genre was built for a sort of
Yeah.
dynamic music system.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, it's super
R-
dope.
RPGs kind of do it, like during boss fight phases. Like if you're near the end of a boss fight, sometimes the
Mhm.
music might change up. But as far as like, it still doesn't hit the same as an action game.
I think Metal Gear Rising as well did it. That's another game in the genre that
Oh
you could
yeah,
reference. Yeah. It was
when
one
the
of the
lyrics
coolest.
kick in.
Yeah, I remember when the sort of DMC5 information came out. Was like one of the sort of info points was, oh, dynamic music. If you hit an S rank, the vocals are gonna kick in. I'm like, yes, please just inject it into me, please. God damn, give it to me. And then the song was so good. It's like I just want to go back to 2019, homie. Like I just want to relive the whole game over again. It was so good.
It's so funny. How are
Um,
we doing on time?
We have like half an
I don't
hour.
know.
I think we get like 30 minutes. We can kill.
All right, chat questions. 30 minutes.
Give us your
We have
questions right
15
now.
minutes. Oh no, that's even less
Is it
time for questions.
Oh, play the Jeopardy music.
Oh, I have a question, just one last one. Um, do you feel like DMC5 influenced your musical sort of style going forward in terms of original content?
Uh, no, but I do feel like I learn something from everything I do, even if it's something that I throw in the garbage. I always try to level up. Like, God, I'm nowhere near where I want to be as a producer, a mixing engineer, or a songwriter. Like, I'm constantly just throwing shit at the fan and hoping something sticks. Um, Bury the Light wouldn't have been what it was without uh, Devil Trigger being what it was, and everything else that I wrote way before that you guys have never heard, including all the stuff when I was like 14, writing shitty songs in my bedroom, listening to Creed for some reason. Um, so yeah, I don't know. There's always like a leveling up thing. I think it'll be something that happens until the day that I die. I don't think I'm ever just gonna be like, oh, done. I'm fucking the best music producer there is. Like that's never gonna happen. I'm trying to like please myself and hope people also have a good time, but constantly also trying to learn like new things. Like for instance, if I'm writing a rock song, I'm gonna look up all kinds of different mixing and engineering techniques. Or if I'm doing like Beatles era cover, I'm gonna look into like mixing techniques from that era and how they didn't really have like infinite tracks. And maybe all the drums were shoved to just the left ear and all the guitars were shoved only on the right ear. Like there's all kinds of little things like that that can inspire where a song goes. But this is like, regardless of which area you're digging into, past, present, or future, it's like there's going to be an evolution of learning involved.
Cool.
I hope that answered
Okay.
your question.
Okay, chat. You've got 15 minutes. Make the most of it. Get those goddamn questions in. Here we go. Lisa Vania says, "Favorite Goosebumps story?" Question mark.
Favorite Goosebumps story? I don't know, man. The Haunted Mask is such a great story. First of all, the episode as a kid was just so terrifying to watch. The whole like Carly Beth saga, and it's so claustrophobic thinking that someone can't get a mask off. So when you're a kid, especially, that sounds so terrifying. Um, and the book itself was also really well written. So,
Oh, actually, real quick, speaking of horror, have you ever read Junji Ito?
mm,
Okay, I'll have to send you some of his stuff. He's a Japanese horror manga artist and writer. His stuff's so good. I think you'll like it.
yeah, please do.
Yeah, for
Ark,
sure.
RK asks, "What is your favorite horror film of all
Favorite horror film of all time? That's too hard because there's too many genres. Like I think watching slashers is hilarious, like Scream and stuff
All
like that.
right.
Those movies make me laugh, but they're just like they're so very 2000s first of all, which is hilarious, or late 90s. They have that vibe that I grew up with. So to me, that's funny. There's things that are
Yeah.
funny about that time, or like I think it's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Was it two or three that opened up on the bridge with the top of their car getting like chainsawed open, and then they get decapitated, and it's like there's just cheesiest like blood squirts coming out of their neck. It's stuff like that's hilarious. And then you have like The Conjuring, which is like legit terrifying. I think is such a well-made film.
Yeah,
And then
that's the thing with horror. Real quick, it's just there's so many subgenres and there's so many different
yeah,
vibes of horror movies that you get. It's so hard to narrow down to even like 10 because like I can think of 20. Like it depends on your mood too, you know.
yeah, there's like slashers, paranormals, creature features. There's all kinds of different genres you can get
Psychological.
into. It Follows is really good. Shit, I don't know, man. Midsummer and Hereditary were such like left fields for the horror industry. I really loved both of those.
Is there a horror movie that like when you hear the word horror, is there like a first one that pops in your head?
I think I just go back to like Halloween and stuff like that. I go back in
But-
time. It's probably not fair, but that's usually what I do. And there's also like all the Universal monsters that were so classic. So
Oh man.
Real
Um,
question: does he like Lord of the Rings? That is a great question. Do you
yeah, I
like
think I
Lord
know
of
one person who doesn't, and it confuses me.
the
Who
What?
doesn't like it? I actually have a really funny story about Lord of the Rings. The first feature film I ever got to write, they had like this really cool like big premiere at an ArcLight. We had a whole room. It was like producers and actors and crowds, and it was so fun. It was like a big energy thing. I was not feeling super great, but pretty good about my music. And it ended, and people were like, shaking my hand and stuff. I'm like, cool, this is great. And then I had to go use the restroom. And then I go into the restroom, and Lord of the Rings is playing into the theater next to me, and I hear Howard Shore's music playing like the most beautiful stuff. And I'm like, I really suck at what I do. Like it was like the most
was
beautiful like
was
sounding
that like a
score.
turning point?
Yes. The night was like it was like a big shift, but it was a humbling experience. It wasn't
Mhm.
like I never thought I was like hot shit before that, but it was definitely like the kick in the stomach. As I was enjoying the night, I was like, God, I have so much more to learn. Cause that I was literally in there for like 20 seconds, and I was able to get like emotionally wrecked by Howard Shore's music. So yeah.
Do
Also
you
went
have
to
a
James Wan. Love James Wan.
Yeah, he's great. Do you have a favorite soundtrack from like a game, TV show, or otherwise?
No,
Too many to list.
I think
Game.
Jurassic Park has one of my favorite scores of all time. Still a big John Williams fan, but that's like pick a day and I'm gonna get tired of listening to that and I'm gonna listen to something else. So yeah.
People, get your questions in. You have 12 minutes of Casey Edwards left. That is not a lot of time. Please
Not a
ask
lot of
Yes,
questions
time.
for
and there's 3 days left or so to donate
this
to
man. That is
homeless
true.
worldwide. So please donate now.
You can find the download link below. It should be a little picture that says, let me just check. Homeless Worldwide. You should see the picture. If you scroll down, please click that and help a great cause. And you can ask a question to this man above too at the same
Do
time.
you find motivation when you listen to that sort of humbling music? Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't take it personally. I just like, damn, I wish I was better. I don't really want to be like them. I don't want to be like John Williams or be like Howard Shore. I just want to be a better version of me. And I know that just takes time, but it's definitely the thing that keeps me in front of my computer longer or in front of a piano longer. Just trying to get better.
Do you always feel like you have music on the brain? Like if you're on vacation and you hear something, like does it often give you inspiration for a song or something?
It depends on my mood. I drive with like no music, and I think that freaks people out because all of my other friends they always like put on a track when they drive somewhere, and I just want silence. Sometimes I'm just so over hearing music.
I can
I just want to
understand.
like chill and like my ears relax. But even then, sometimes something is trying to like be solved in my brain, trying to figure out the verse or chorus that I can't write, or figure out a lyric that matches what I'm trying to get the point across with.
You don't want to
Yeah,
frustrate yourself, so you just sit in silence. That makes sense. Yeah,
yeah.
that's yeah. Have you had anyone recognize you in the street and be like, "Oh my God, it's Casey Edwards, the DMC5"? Has
No,
that happened yet, or is
never. Once at a con, someone recognized me, but that was very specific. I was doing a panel there too, so it kind of made sense that after the fact
yeah?
that they would recognize me. But no, let's just say no.
Um, fair enough.
Is there
Yep.
something is there something about you that people don't know that you might want people to know? Just some little
Oh my
trivia.
god, I wouldn't even
We're
know.
always talking about DMC and music. It's just like, is there something random?
Uh, I don't feel prepared to answer that.
Okay,
I don't know that
think
I wish
about
I
it.
could. I don't know. I think maybe the same when it comes with most people. We're all multifaceted. don't spend my every waking hour thinking about Devil May Cry, or
Lucky you.
anything for that matter. I'm constantly rotating emotions musically, personally. Um, that's about it. I feel like I'm such a mess of a person.
I think we can relate. Don't worry. It's
Yeah,
it's
like
a lot of
I'm
people.
just constantly thinking about all kinds of stuff. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that.
That's fair. It is kind of a loaded question.
Yeah,
Dev-
about me that they don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Devil Never Cry asks, do you ever reuse or repurpose scrapped ideas and projects? I feel like we kind of covered that, but if there's anything you
Yeah,
want to add on that, Casey? No.
kind of.
Basically, yeah, DNC, stop asking silly questions before.
Yes, things can be so specific to a project that either can't or it just doesn't work. So it doesn't happen often or at all,
Has
really.
Has anyone found the bones in the bodies in the basement? I don't think anyone's found those yet. Yeah, I've
I don't
got
have a
mine for
basement.
Like we're gonna answer.
Yeah,
you.
I'm gonna ask you like really random stuff. Like, do you have like what's like a pet peeve of yours?
pet peeve.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel like there could be so many. I hate when people chew loudly. That's so annoying.
It is pretty annoying.
Like smacking. Rude people, especially to like servant staff. I just want to slap them in the face.
Yeah.
Um, I guess I waited tables for like 8 years. So anytime I see people like mistreating anybody in like a public service or hospital, what is it called? Hospitality
Mhm.
job, I just like, it really grinds my gears. It really goes to show how they probably act in private as well to
Yeah.
their own loved ones.
Everybody needs to work in customer service or hospitality at some point in their lives. Like that should
Hmm,
be a requirement.
Yeah.
okay,
So many
I
rude
got
people out there.
I got a question. Very important question. If I was somehow coming to the Casey Edwards dinner party, what would be for dinner? What is your go-to meal that you would prepare? Is there any speciality? Is there any?
I know Allie would say chili just because I love making spicy homemade chili from scratch. But we both love cooking so much. Like one day we'll make like curried salmon on top of rice with broccoli and stuff like that, or we'll make like steak, like we'll sear some fillets or something like that, or we'll go vegetarian for the day and have like a nice veggie curry korma. I don't know.
See, now I want to go for dinner at Casey Edwards' house. That
Yeah,
sounds
where's the
absolutely
invite?
fantastic. Yeah.
We recently a friend bought us a pasta maker. So we've been
Oh,
making like homemade pasta. So we'll do
fresh
like a homemade
pasta.
fettuccine. Why? So you shouldn't even be asking me. B is like, was it Bach, right? He's the chef. Like that's like
Doesn't
way more
matter.
interesting question for him. Like I'm just
He does.
an at-home cooking guy.
I am so hungry
God,
right now.
fresh
God damn it.
fresh pasta is so good.
It's so
Um,
good.
which
It
so
only
would you
takes like a minute and a half to make, or at
really?
least
That
in the water. To make it takes forever, it feels like. But I mean, like, when you boil like hard pasta, it takes like 10-15 minutes or so for it to become al dente. Like fresh,
mm,
soft pasta, at least egg pasta, takes like a minute and a half, and then you take it out and it's done.
I'm so
does
hungry right
whenever I think
now.
of like yeah, like fresh pasta like that or from scratch, I always feel like it takes like hours. So you're making it sound so easy. I've
Oh
never
yeah, no,
done that.
making it does take a while, but yeah, once you're done
Okay.
making it, just throwing it into the water is the easy part.
Okay.
What
So if
is
you
your?
were go ahead.
Go ahead. No,
No,
you
no, no,
go ahead.
you go. No,
I'll,
no, no,
I'll,
no.
No, 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 you.
No, you hang up
what,
first.
what is your favorite sport, if you have one?
I've been really digging basketball lately. I don't know what triggered in my brain. Like whenever I saw Kobe Bryant's Oscar award-winning short film, Dear Basketball, they premiered it at the Hollywood Bowl with John Williams playing it live. He did the score for it, and I was like, "Damn, Kobe Bryant just made me cry." Um, and it was such a moving short film. And then he passed away like a
Rich.
year later, and it's like I
Wow.
don't know. That was like really. I don't know the guy. I don't have any personal feelings towards him, but it's like such a loss for somebody who cared about something so much. And I know what that feels like to give everything of something that you have to something that you love, and then just be ripped away from that community who's like millions of kids who looked up to him, or adults, or anybody who he's helped like get straightened out. Anyways, besides the point. I also grew up during the time of the Chicago Bulls, and that was like a bigger than life thing. It was like bigger than basketball, like the whole Be Like Mike and Space Jam and stuff like
Yeah,
that. I don't know. I've been enjoying basketball for all those reasons.
Rune
It's like a
I
BH.
mean,
nostalgia kick plus a musical heartthrob thingy, I guess.
um, don't worry about my question.
Did you forget it
Why?
again?
No, it's all good. It's all good. Oh wait, I do have a question. Okay, let's say you open up a business tomorrow. What would it be?
Me?
Yeah, like what
Does
kind
it
of
have to?
business would it be?
Does it have to be non-music related?
Sure. Or if it could be music
Uh,
if you want, it doesn't matter. What would whatever feels right to you.
well, before I ever did music, I wanted to be an animator, but I'm really terrible at drawing. So if I could go back in time and start learning how to do something better these days, like with YouTube, I would have been way better. But back then, I was like so poor, I couldn't like afford to like hire anybody to teach me, and I wasn't self-teaching myself well enough. I would have loved to like go back and be an animator or
I like
open up a business that inspires art in other people. I guess I'd still be in art. It's such a lame answer.
no, like that makes sense. Like you're just like born to be in a creative field in some way.
Yeah, I guess so. But I really like science and space and all that stuff too, even though it's frightening as hell.
Space is pretty scary. Just open
Yeah.
a chili business. That's safe.
I'll just grow
Just
chilies.
chili. Casey's chili. It's really simple.
Chili business. Or animator, basically the same. True.
I don't have a question, but my last sort of thing is just a sort of statement, and it's when the next time you do a sort of video game related song, I apologize in advance if I butcher it and make it sound sort of 80s synthwavy. If it's butchered, I apologize. I've done it so many times in the past. I'm sorry in advance, Casey. Okay, I promise I don't do it on purpose.
Like the one thing I get asked a lot is, "Have you heard this? Have you heard that?" I've heard every cover from everybody who's ever written anything about Devil May Cry, either jokingly or seriously, because everything gets sent to me. So
That's
just to go ahead and answer that now for everybody, I've heard it. So it means I've probably heard your stuff too, and I just don't remember your name being attached to it.
I don't remember my name either. Don't worry. It's like who the hell is Millz? I mean, I don't know who that is. But my last real question is, what did Ableton ever do to you? Come on, Cubase, really?
Oh,
Jeez.
I'm sorry, it's just happenstance.
Okay, I'm officially out of questions. B, you're gonna have to take over. That's me. I'm
Oh
dry.
man. I was just actually I was gonna ask, like, speaking of people sending you stuff, is there anything that somebody sent you, like whether it's art or a cover, that just made you cry or just like close to crying?
I really like
You have
seeing.
you don't have to be
I like
specific if you
seeing.
don't want to out anybody, but
No, I like seeing. Some people send me their like kids dancing to songs that I've written before,
oh,
or one of my other followers sent me a video of herself dancing with one of her friends to the Heatwave remix that I did for a friend, and I just love seeing people like having moments like that together. That was really special. I like stuff like that a lot, actually.
that
It's
is
really
sweet.
sweet.
I remember like Reddit singing "Bury the Light" all at once. I thought that
Yes,
was
that stuff
cute.
is hilarious.
That was so funny.
That makes me laugh. And
Yeah.
the Bury the Light remake of him not paying child support is great.
Yeah, the memes are pretty good.
You have
Yeah.
1 minute of Casey Edwards left. People, you have 1 minute left. If you have any questions, we probably don't have enough time to answer them, but we'll
Well, we
try.
could I mean, Casey, do you want to tell people where they can I can link where they can find you. Do you want to mention like what you've been working on or about to?
I mean, I'm working on a song right now that I hope I can finish before Halloween for reasons, personal reasons.
Mm.
Ooh,
I'm working
Mm.
on some game stuff that I can't talk about, but I am working on game stuff.
that's something we'll
I'm
look forward to.
hoping to do more in the film and TV world soon. That would be nice. You can find me, I think, on Twitter and Instagram at Composer Casey. I think it's the same on TikTok. I recently started a TikTok because I thought TikTok was fun. I do different things across all different platforms. I think I bitch and complain way more on Twitter, and I shit post on Twitter the most, which is funny. Instagram is usually more specifically oriented towards releases or family stuff, I guess. And TikTok is just music production. And there's YouTube,
Well,
I know you had.
youtube.com/Casey Edwards.
Yeah, I linked your
well,
YouTube, your Twitter.
Yeah, those are the main ones.
well. On
Let's
that
get
note, Casey,
Instagram.
um, I think we have to wrap up now. So
Yeah.
thanks very much for joining us. Thanks very much for trying to be involved in the community. It's very much appreciated.
Yeah, I
Um,
appreciate you guys too, everybody.
yeah,
It's been really, like I said, a return on investment. It's been really fun.
Yeah,
and
thanks.
I'm not really good at outros actually. So
I'm just gonna
so
chip
we're
in
gonna-
Well,
the voice
I
from
already- Yeah, let's do salute.
beyond.
TMC. Thank
already
you.
linked the places you guys can find Casey. But yeah, thank you again for joining us. It was nice to chill, answer some questions. And
I'm just gonna
all
pitch
is-
in from voice from below. Thank you very much, Casey, for joining us. Thank you so much for thank you so much for doing it, for agreeing to do what you do for us, because that's the second time you actually joined us in all talks and everything. So again, huge massive thank you, and please chat, give a massive shout out to Casey. Go follow him, go send him some good words, and I wish you all the best in your future endeavors. Nerd Armory signing off.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for coming on, Casey. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
Are we going up? Who's hosting this?
Devil May Cry.